guys were here, I showed you guys how to apply the FTC. You'll have to write down a few things again. Again, today's lesson is kind of challenging because it's the rewritten version of the FTC. So I won't keep deriving for you the rewritten version. I'd highly recommend that you sit down with a blank sheet of paper. As I spoke to you guys, some of you who were at UWM the other day, really difficult formulas, the only way you can wrap your mind around them is you keep writing them from scratch and you keep looking at the original one. This has to become like a second nature to you to write down what you see right there, right? Again, if you're wondering, when do you do this? Every time they give you a derivative and they ask you about the original function, you do this. So, I believe where I left off was I had set up for you a integral that went f of x is equal to f of 3 plus the integration from 3 to x of 2x plus 1 dx. And I think I may have left that as a t. Can you check your notes what I exactly did there?
You did dx.
I did dx. Okay, so just so you know that you can put an x if you want, but here we're going to put a t. Now, let's go ahead and evaluate this. So, looking off the initial condition, what was f of 3 equal to according to a formula? So write a 7 here. And like I said, if you just listen to me carefully the first time, this is not going to bother you for the rest of the course. It does hang around until you're done with calculus entirely. What's the integration of 2t plus 1?
T squared plus 1.
Right?
1z.
So, now I know this is kind of weird because we are always accustomed to numbers. We're always used to numbers being there, and then we plug the numbers into the answer. Here, one of them is actually not a number. It's designed that way. And it's 7 plus x squared plus x. If you're wondering why do you change the x's into t's before you start, because it sounds weird to say I'm going to take an x and plug it into x's. That's the only reason we do that. And sometimes we don't bother to say it, and sometimes we do. It's really, there's no exact science to it. Okay? So you go ahead and you plug in all of those numbers. Obviously there's nothing here that you can do. Remember, it's top minus bottom. Be careful of this common mistake students make. They take the x and put it into the first term, and they put the 3 into the second term. Their mind just plays a bit of a game on them there. Okay, guys, help me out with this piece right here. What is 3 squared plus 3 going to give to you? 12. So you have 7 minus 12. What's that going to give you?
5. Negative 5.
So you have x squared plus x minus 5, and that is equal to f of x. Right? Okay? Now I remember what I had said to you that I wanted to show to you guys. So this is the way that you're supposed to do it. Okay, we'll call this method 1. Yusuf, are you with us?
Oh, yeah.
Alright. Yusuf started doing this thing a few years ago where he would write down his name and then he would write down the subject of the class and he would write down math. Then over the years he stopped writing down math, he started writing down meth. And then I noticed that
at first I wrote maths with an F and then I wrote
sorry.
You're skipping steps, bro.
He went maths, then he came around to math, then he came around to, and the other day I was shocked. He wrote down meth.
No, it was math infinity.
Yeah, I think he just wrote down the name of the drug, so I was
it was math at the beginning. That was a joke.
Oh, he spelled it
I spelled it with an
M-A-T-F.
M-A-T. That was a joke.
You're so...
You have a different sense of humor.
You said it's okay.
That's why we appreciate you, man.
You're different.
You put a different mix into the class. I had a student, he's a police officer now, and he used to be the goofiest, not that you're goofy, but he used to be the goofiest kid I ever met, right? Like for example, the first day that, I think I one time told you this, first time I came to Salam school, Sister Reem gave me a roster of kids, and she said, I'm not dealing with these kids. I dealt with them in middle school. She walked out on me. And so I got this roster of kids, and now I understood on the first day why she didn't want to be around them. But I'm going through the names, and I'm calling out some of the names on that roster. Again, this is a story from like 13 years ago. These guys are married and have jobs and kids now, right? But I'm going through the names, and I call out like the first name, and Hamza, who was the guy who was really goofy, was a police officer now. He goes, yeah, that guy, he's not here. I'm like, where is he? He goes, oh, he's stuck on the Mexican border. I'm like, oh man, that sucks. So when is he? He's like, we don't know when he's gonna come. All right, okay, all right. So I marked like the person was stuck on the border. I guess I was new school, new community. I didn't know. I was coming from Dubai, so I thought that was a real thing. That you would get stuck on the Mexican border, right? Anyway, then the next 3-4 kids are here, and I go to another kid, and I say that kid's name, and Hamza goes, oh yeah, that kid's not here either. And I'm like, where is he? He's like, oh, he died. He died.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
he's goofiest kid ever, man. Goofiest kid. And then I was like shocked. I'm like, and they were like, yeah, yep. They used to all just be in on it, man. I didn't know they all like kind of grew up together, you know. So I was like, oh, well, that's very sad that, you know, that he, Allah yarham, yeah, you know, like I didn't even know that much Arabic at the time, but I felt bad. I'm like, he died. And anyway, so I went down the list. I finished it. A few days later, that kid who apparently had died and the kid who was at the Mexican border, they both show up to class, right? So I'm like, did you get over the border? Okay. And the kids thought that was hilarious and started laughing. But the kid who I thought had died, I was genuinely shocked at how goofy Hamza was for saying that he had died. Anyway, subhanAllah, you know, this the beautiful thing about being patient and silent and just observing the universe is it comes back to you. Last year, you guys remember Career Day?
Yeah.
And we canceled it this year, but we were having Career Day, and both of these goofballs, one of them is a firefighter now, and one of them is a cop. They both showed up in the same. They both showed up in the same room, and. Yeah, and he's talking about, you know, how you gotta be serious and, you know, you gotta take life, you know, but seriously and things of that sort. I'm like, this is the same kid who convinced me for a whole week that one kid was dead and one kid was stuck on the border. So I just had to ask him. I'm like, Hamza, you know, I remember you as a kid, man. You know, like I remember you as an 11th grader. And then subhanAllah, 13 years later, you're just like, you know, you're there in your like a cop uniform. I'm kind of like afraid of you right now, you know. Like, where did things change, you know? And I you know, I have some faint memory of what he said, right? But he basically said, well, once you leave this place, right, it's not like a family anymore. Everyone's, you know, I mean, all of you have brothers and sisters in college and stuff like that, and they'll tell you the same thing. It's very impersonal, you know, everybody gets offended by everything, you know, everybody's got a problem with everything, everybody cancels everybody else. So, again, just be careful with some of that stuff when you get out of here. So many kids have told me, like, I said something and I didn't realize that was only okay to say in Salam school, but it was not okay to say outside. I'm like, dude, it was never okay to say it here either. It's not okay either. But we appreciate you, man. Now, back to the FTC. The reason why I was about to write method. I'm like, where does meth? Why am I thinking that? And I just remembered that this young man had made a joke about this. So let me teach you a second way to do this. I would not recommend it, but I really want you guys to know it. And this is called the plus C method. You guys want to write this down, okay? I'll even share with you where it's actually kind of nice to use. You generally try to teach this to students who are just bad with formulas, which is like the majority of kids out there. You're not bad with formulas, I know that. So this is called the plus C method. And the plus C method goes like this. It says, okay, forget about the whole fundamental theorem of calculus. Pretend you never knew it, right? What you do is you take the integral of this function over here, so t squared plus t, alright? You take an indefinite integral, so you just do that part right there. Don't forget, don't worry about the limits, don't worry about anything, just go ahead and take that
dt.
integral, right? So, yes, so dt. So you're like, okay, let's go ahead and integrate 2t plus 1. Alright, so you're very quickly you're like, okay, this is gonna give you t squared, this is gonna give you t, but because this is an indefinite integral, what more do you need to put at the end of it? Plus c. So this is why I took the name plus c method. Again, it's an informal name that we give to it. So this is the plus c method. So what you're saying is the function must have been equal to t squared plus t plus some constant. Now that constant could have been 0, that constant could have been an actual number. Then what you do, and I already know some of you are really gonna like this method. What you do is you look at the other piece of information they provided you. This is a hint that they gave to you. They said that when you plug 3 into this question, you will get 7 as an answer, right? So if you plug 3 into this over here, it's going to look like the following. F of 3 is equal to 3 squared plus 3 plus some constant is equal to 7. And that allows you to solve for the constant. So if you do the math over there, what should you guys get for the constant? -5. Good job, Yusuf. So this becomes the constant, and you can take that constant and plug it in, and you're done with the same thing. Okay, so like I said, I knew that some of you would really like this, but please, I would avoid this, all right, because I know what the lessons are like after this. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to stay quiet for a little bit, and I'm going to ask you guys to set the whole thing up for this one over here and work with it. Before you start, notice how this time we're not asking you for f of x. We want you to find f of pi over 2. Okay, so it's going a little bit further than the previous one did. go through this together. So, again, tricky stuff, but the first hurdle that you need to overcome is the FTC. Okay, so take a look at where I put things. The question was asking about f of pi over 2, so look at where the pi over 2 went. As soon as it shows up right over here, it shows up automatically at the top of the integral. Earlier, because they were asking you for f of x, that's what showed up at the top of the integral. Right, so it's open-ended. Number 2, this is f of 0. So the 0 is what initially goes. That f of 0, using the initial condition, transforms into a 2. But that 0 over there, of course, is going to stick around until you're done taking an integral and evaluating things. Okay? Now, the integration of this is not anything pretty. It's just something you have to deal with. The integration of cosine is sine. Remember, if you thought to yourself it's negative sign, it's because you're thinking of derivatives still, and you have to move on from that. And then this is x squared over 2. Then you plug just pi over 2 and 0 into it, and just be careful with all the stuff that's over there. Then you end up with the answer that's in front of you. Do you guys think that the second method would work on this the same way? The method 2?
Yeah.
No?
I used it once.
You used it already? Did it work for you?
Yeah.
Did you find f of x first, and then you plugged in?
Yeah.
Alright, so the second method works, but again, I'm not here to market the second method. I just wanted you to know that there is another way to do things that they teach out there, but I don't necessarily endorse it over here. Okay. Let's see if we can fit one more in, you guys, but on a calculator. And you guys already have an assignment due tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. It's not AP2, it's AP. Alright, so pick up a calculator, make sure you are in degree, radians mode, because in physics we've been in degrees lately. Make sure you do this on your paper first, and then use your calculator for the important parts of it. Now you guys will notice nowhere is it titled that you're supposed to use the FTC. You're supposed to realize they're giving me an initial condition and they're giving me a derivative function. So and if they ask me for a function, that must be using the FTC. I'll wait for you guys to share some results with each other.
That should be negative 0.241.
You're talking about the integral just by itself, right?
Wait, how do we do that?
So just use a calculator, do that, type that in. Type it in.
Integrate cosine x squared.
By hand? No, your calculator will do that for you. FN int, man. Hey, can somebody say an answer? I gotta do one more thing.
6.759.
Thank you, Yusuf. Okay. Before you guys go off to your next class, I have a quick question for you. Is there something wrong with the integral there?
It's going from 3 to 2.
Going from 3 to 2, what have we learned in this class with limits that are like that? Alright, so I want you to do something, because this becomes a bit of an issue later on in the course for a lot of students. They do a double negative and then they mess themselves up. So look, technically speaking, the way that we've learned is you should take these and change them to a minus, a 2, and then a 3. Why don't you retype that same problem into your calculator with these quick changes. Make this a minus, make that a 2, and make that a 3. And all I'm looking for is, do you still end up with the same exact answer? So again, your calculator, even if you give it the backward limits, it'll correct them for you. It does the job for you. Okay, so that's not a big concern.
But awesome, are we gonna put our last kids next to them?
So we already know.
Yeah.
We took a test this week, didn't we?
Yeah, so next week then?
Yeah. Hey, I think Haya's not here today.